Heavy metal band Dust. He was in the great punk rock band Richard Hell and the Voidoids. And let's see, others? Were there other pre-Ramones bands, Mark?
Yeah, I did a blues album with a Mississippi Delta original blues guy, which I always loved the blues, and I had that opportunity. And it was just basically the Ramones, Richard Hell, and Dust, and that situation. And I did an album with the first Rolling Stones producer, Andrew Oldham. So it's been a pretty, and a movie, Rockville High School. It's been a long trip.
Before we do the Ramones stuff, let me just ask you about Richard Hell and the Voidoids. They were one of the first CV bands, and a great one. What was your tenure like in them, and why'd you get in, why'd you get out?
Well, they were a very integral part of the New York punk scene. And Malcolm McLaren took Richard Hell's look and brought it back to England, and then he used it on the Sex Pistols.
Yep.
So we did an album called The Blank Generation, the same company that the Ramones were on, Sire Records. And we toured with The Clash when punk was really exploding in England for 4 weeks. They wanted us on the bill. They wanted an American punk band on the bill. So we did the touring, and then when we came back, Richard didn't want to tour anymore. I did. This is what I was wanting to do. So I was at the bar at CBGB's, where we all hung out. Debbie, Harry, me, Johnny Dunners, Dee Dee Ramone, Joey Ramone, Richard Hell, David Johansen, Patti Smith. So we all kind of knew each other, but the other Ramones used to come see my band, Dust, when we were playing in the Village. So Tommy, when he left the band, when he was leaving the band, suggested to Dee Dee to ask me if I would join the group. Because Tommy really didn't go out that much, Dee Dee did, and he knew that he would find me at the bar at CBGB's. So that's when I was asked to join the Ramones. I was with them 15 years.
Was it an easy decision for you to make? Saying like, yeah, I can do this.
Basically, just eighth note downstrokes that we all did together. It looks easy, it isn't easy, but the more you do it, the easier it is.
Tommy, especially since he died, a lot of people have sort of stepped up to give him a lot of props, both for the drumming style and the songwriting. Would you echo that in terms of what he did to kind of blaze that path?
Well, he never played the drums. He just picked up the drumsticks and started playing. Joey was the drummer originally, but they thought it'd be better that he be the front man. It was all proportion and, the way the band looked and everything. So it was the right move, but Tommy had the idea of it first, and he was their manager. So, he definitely had an important part of developing band.
And then he wanted to step out, to basically get behind the scenes again, right? Still write, produce.
Yeah, he just wanted to produce. He didn't want to tour anymore. All these stories are in my book that'll be out January 13th. So there were a few other reasons why he wanted to leave, but he really liked production.
Yeah.
He really knew a lot about studio techniques, and that's what he kept on doing.
Okay, let me ask you about your relationship with the guys over the years. I know I knew you all pretty well back in the day, and I know Johnny and Joey were pretty much at each other's throats most of the time.
Yeah.
How about you? How did you fit into that dynamic? Did you have
when
to play?
I joined the group in '78, I was a new guy, but I was very observant. And I realized, you got to be honest with this stuff. As my father always told me, you have to live with it. The thing is that Johnny and Joey just didn't get along. That's the way it's life. People gravitate towards other people they do like. They were polar opposites, but it didn't affect our music. Maybe it helped it. But Dee Dee was my best friend, and we had the best laughs and everything. And I was all their friends, but when the arguing started, I tried to be the mediator. Joey would be here, Johnny would be here. Joey would tell me to tell Johnny something, I would tell him, then Johnny would tell me his answer, and I'd have to answer Joey. So it was these, well, childish animosities that, kept going on and on until we decided to retire in 1996. I really wish that John went to see Joey before he passed away, because after all, they did play together for 23 years.
Yeah.
But I was the only Ramone to visit Joey in the hospital before he passed away.
Really?
Yeah, and then it was Dee Dee, then it was John, then now it was Tommy. Tommy passed away, he was in a hospice. So it's like 4 bandmates, friends, whatever you want to call it, have just disappeared, gone away.
It's pretty, sad and awful and everything to think about. You're,
Yeah.
I guess, in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame thing, you're in it, correct?
Yeah.
With the group, right?
Yeah.
So you're
I just brought that for, the scenery.
Oh, well, no, but you're the surviving member
Yeah.
still.
That's the only surviving member of Ramones that's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
We were very grateful to be in it because of the fact that we were with our peers, the Kinks, the Beatles, the Stones, the Who, the Yardbirds, Phil Spector's groups, and all the guys that started rock, like Jerry Lee Lewis, Little Richard, Chuck Berry, Johnny Cash, all the great Sun recording artists. So when we were finally recognized to be into the Hall of Fame, we were very honored.
It's funny, the idea, I still wrestle with the idea that rock and roll has a Hall of Fame. I guess it's a good thing. But I remember talking to Jerry Lee Lewis right after he was inducted, and when he told me about it, he said, well, I was indicted. And it was sort of one of those Freudian slips, like,
Yeah.
kind of like, oh, right. And, back, especially when it first started, there was some question, I guess, about its validity. Who do you really need Jan Wenner and Rolling Stone to validate what you've done?
Well, it's not just John Leonard.
No, I know. But,
There's a lot of people on the panel.
yeah.
Who make up, the proper decisions. They're music people. And Jan Warner relies on these people because of their expertise in the business. So you might have 1 million to 20 million selling album band that isn't in the Hall of Fame, or you could have a band that sold 150,000, 200,000 albums and they're in.
Right.
So it has a lot to do with influence, what the band created, or what the value of their worth. So that there's a lot of things you have to take into consideration.
Yeah, there's a lot of different floating criteria.
Yeah,
that
but it is a place to go to see the Hall of Fame in Ohio, just to see the evolution of rock and what it was like when it started. You only had 2 tracks and all this equipment that is just so outdated, but they made great records on them. And then you see all the, obviously, the costumes these guys wore, the guitars they played, the drum sets. So it's pretty interesting. It's really a great museum.
I remember hearing Rock and Roll High School for the first time, and the line of, I don't care about history, that's not where I want to be.
Right.
I remember hearing it and going, it's such a great line, because we all feel that way. I think it's like, yes, we want to live for today. We don't want to be just some dusty note in a book.
Right.
But obviously, we all end up, if we're fortunate, part of history, and sometimes a lesser part of it. But I guess here you are. As a big part of history, rock history.
Yeah, Rock and Roll High School was a movie that Roger Corman produced, that Alan Arkish directed, and they wanted us in the movie. They wanted cartoon caricature-looking people. So that was tagged to us when Road to Ruin, our 4th album, came out, because there was a cartoon of us painted. But yeah, we were happy to be in that movie. It did well. Now it's a classic rock movie. It was well done on the shoestring budget that we had, and we were very proud of it.
It's a great movie.
I was upset that I didn't win the Academy Award.
What category would you have been in?
Oh, God, who knows? But I only had one line.
What was it?
I guess the shortest line.
Was it the pizza line? What was it?
No, I think I just poke on the arm of a guy named Mr. McGree. He was the teacher, and he said a joke. And I said, "That was a good one, Mr. McGree." And that was it.
Did you have others that were cut? Or was it really that was it?
So, and, you're there, you're hanging out for 6 weeks, and that's your line, And then, but mainly we just had to play and romp around in the hallways, and that was kind of the premise of the movie, just disrupting things and dealing with Miss Togar, the principal. And,
oh, she was mean.
Oh, she was right. Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, she was, and of course B.J. Souls. So it turned out good. I'm glad it wasn't a documentary. I don't think rock documentaries come out good, or rock movies of the band. That's why when I look back, it was great to have done that movie, because it wasn't a movie about the Ramones or a rockumentary. It was just a movie.
but we have heard anyway that Scorsese is interested in doing a Ramones
Well,
documentary.
when he puts his signature on the contract, we'll see.
I mean, are you interested? If that did happen, would you want to be involved with that? Do you think that'd be a good idea?
Well, after seeing the CBGB movie and the Runaways movie, I don't know. I mean, I have faith in Martin Scorsese, and he lives in New York. I'm sure he's kind of aware of what the scene was like in New York in the CBGB era in the 70s. But to really have it done properly, you really have to go to the source, and 4 of the other Ramones aren't with us. So who's really gonna, be the one to advise or say, no, that didn't happen, or this or that, and this and this? And that's one of the reasons why I wrote the book, to set the record straight about a lot of things, because I read all the Ramones books, and there were a lot of exaggerations. And I don't feel you have to sensationalize things just to sell a book. You can be honest too and tell exactly what really happened and sell a book.
What are some of the, if you will, exaggerations or myths that you have issue with and that you tackle in your book?
Well, in most all the books, they claim that Phil Spector pointed a gun at us in the studio, and he didn't.
I have heard that story numerous times.
I was there. He had them on him, and he took them off because they were heavy, and laid them on the console, the recording board. But he never pointed a gun at us. He shot guns off in the studio, I guess, when he was with John Lennon at the ceiling, and he took out a gun at Leonard Cohen, but he never pointed a gun at the Ramones. So that's one thing I wanted to, make it straight in the book.
Did he kind of lock you in the studio, though, or the mansion, whatever it was, to not let you go at some point?
Phil was a hermit, and when he had company, I could see why. He loved company. It was time for us to go, because we had to go to the studio the next day. So he didn't hold us at gunpoint, but he locked the door, and then he would say, "Don't go near the door." What are we supposed to do? Not argue with Phil Spector, our producer. The producer's in he molds you on a record. So it wasn't to the point where he held us at gunpoint. But what was funny is when we went back to the hotel, he was the first one to knock on my door with a bottle of Manischewitz table wine to share the bottle with him. And this, you're talking 4:30 in the morning, and we had to be up at around noon to start recording End of the Century, and the first song was Rock and Roll Radio. And that was a lot of stuff on that, a lot of things, a lot of different time changes. But basically that's what it was like, and doing that, and it's in the book, that whole album chapter.
the end of the century, I'm glad you brought the album up, because that was an album I think a lot of people either didn't like or misunderstood the first time around. I think it's a terrific album, and I think it's one that wears.
They like it more now, yeah.
Do you know? Did you have reservations when it came out?
Well, it was so different.
It was so different, yeah.
And the punk purists didn't like it because it had horns on it and a lot of overdubs, and that was what Phil was known for. And
Right.
we knew what we were getting in before we had him as a producer.
Sure.
So we understood that this was going to happen. And if anybody was into Phil Spector, and a lot of the punk bands and punk fans love his music. With the girl groups and Be My Baby, Baby I Love You, and all this stuff, those are great songs. But after a little bit of time went by, people realized that the songs are good on the album. That there were some really good songs. So in the end, that's really what matters,
Oh, I agree. I mean, I like the production too, but it was that sort of, you had to kind of get over the glossiness and the bigness of it, and then once you did, I mean, it's terrific. And I guess,
yeah.
and obviously when you played them live, they took on a much different character.
Well, yeah, live is different than recording, but the thing is that a lot of the punk purists just wanted to hear three chords again and again and again. I mean, they already did 3 albums of 3 chords, 3 chords, 3 chords, 3 chords, which were great. But sometimes you gotta move on a little. You know what I mean? At least try to attempt something a little different, but keep it with your own style. So that's what we did on Road to Ruin, which was a really good album.
Terrific record. One thing I want to ask about the live performance, you did pretty much, as far as I can recall, and I saw you a whole bunch of times, both with Tommy, with you, I think with Richie, I think at some point behind the drums. But the beginning and end of the set pretty much stayed the same, I think, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then the variation was in the middle. Can you tell me a little
Yeah.
bit about that, how you guys wanted to structure things, and why you did keep it that way?
Well, me, Dee Dee, Johnny, and Joey, when we would tour, if we were in different countries, we would just play the same set. Excuse me. And then I used to bring a camera around everywhere I went, a video camera. I have the largest Ramone's video library. So I would sit down, watch the tapes, and see how the audience reacted to basically each song, visually and audio. So we really wanted to play the songs that we thought would go over the best. And of course when an album comes out, you're there to promote the songs, some of the songs that are on that new album. So you would integrate the two at the moment when the album would come out.
Yeah. So I think you realize, and I think smartly so, that I mean that wonderful opening and closing, I mean they were classic bits. I mean people wanted to hear them. They didn't really want you to deviate from that.
No, the ending was important because certain songs flow better than others into other songs.
Right.
And that's what it was at that point. It was, I think, Pinhead into Today You Love Tomorrow the World.
Yeah.
Something like that, or whatever it was. And at that moment, we would never touch that setup there.
What was the change in the band when Dee Dee left and CJ came
in? Dee Dee should have stayed.
He continued to write, didn't he?
Yeah. He continued to write for us. And then, luckily. And I stayed friends with Dee Dee even when he wasn't even in the group. But he had other things to pursue. And he tried, but Dee Dee was a rocker, not a rapper. And that's
the Dee Dee King period.
Right,
Yes.
And I give him kudos for at least experimenting with a different kind of musical genre. But he was up against stiff competition. Ice-T. All these great rappers who he couldn't compare to, but no one could compare to Dee Dee Ramone. So, after Dee Dee left the group, we managed to survive another 7 years. But when he left, to me, it was like, like Paul McCartney leaving the Beatles or something. He was the main songwriter.
I knew Dee Dee kind of well, and I know at some periods, I remember when he went out on a solo tour, he played a small club in Boston, and small audience, but,
Yeah.
but he was very ferocious about getting out there and doing it, and he was also clean.
Yeah.
And we were talking after the show, very sincerely, and I was saying, how are you doing with this? And he said, he talked about how horrible drugs were, how much they'd killed him, and he was so committed to being sober at that point. And
Yeah.
it was a very rewarding thing to talk to him and to feel that energy and power from him, and of course, that didn't.
I took him to a place called Narcotics Anonymous, and all the stuff's in the book, the rehabs, the institutions, the pinhead stuff. So he was sober, straight, for 6-7 years, maybe even a little more. And then one day in Los Angeles, in his duplex apartment, he overdosed. And I always told him, if you have any urges, just give me a call, talk it out, But unfortunately, he didn't take that advice, and the poison he injected in his veins were too strong at the moment, because he was so clean.
Right, it was
just too much for the system to handle.
He was probably used to do his old dose. And he was,
Yes, and that's what happened, unfortunately. And he was my closest friend, and then Johnny, Johnny Ramone, who died of prostate cancer, and then just recently Tommy. So, you know what I mean?
This may be a silly question, but does any of this have to do with a rock and roll lifestyle, or do you just think,
It's the individual. You can have a craving and urging for something. Doesn't matter what business you're in. You could be a doctor, you could be a secretary, you could be a construction worker. You can have these temptations that become addictions. So it doesn't matter what business you're in. I know guys that, I never even smoked cigarettes, but I liked drinking when I was a youth. But I had to stop that too. But the thing is that, you just got to be careful, because you want to follow your dreams, and these things can hamper your dreams.
I know there's a mentality too of when you're a rock star or some semblance of a rock star, people want to give it to you free. They want to party with a rock star.
Well, that's what happened when we were filming Rock and Roll High School. There was a fence around the school, and a lot of the fans in Los Angeles knew we were there. In LA, everyone knows where you are. So when we had our break, we would go to the fence and sign for our fans who were waiting. But the problem was they were throwing drugs over the fence. And Dee Dee would get on his hands and knees and pick them up and start taking them. I go, Dee Dee, you don't even know what this stuff is. What are you doing? Oh, I like the colors. Dee Dee, just because they're pretty doesn't mean they're not going to screw your mind up, And during filming Rock and Roll High School, he had to go to the hospital twice to get his stomach pumped. So that's in the book too. All the insanity. We were definitely an insane people, but maybe all that helped with Ramone's music.
That's sort of the mystery I think a lot of people have. It's like, people know about the Discord and some of the misadventures and all that, but how did the songs get written? How did these great songs get written?
We'd be in a van, we'd be in a hotel room, Dee Dee would call me, Joey would call me, we'd just beat along with them. Then John would come in, Dee Dee would teach John the guitar chords, because Dee Dee could play guitar too. And it just worked out like that. Lyrics what kind of beat you would put to it, and then the others being taught how to play it. So just because Dee Dee would write it on a guitar, he'd have to play the bass too, on a recording. But for instance, in Rock and Roll High School, there's a part that goes, driving around in my GTO, Rock and Roll High School, but Joey's original lyrics were driving around with nowhere to go. So I said to Joey, why don't you just put in the line, this line, driving along in my GTO, which sounds cooler. It's a car, cool car. Ronnie Bingham was the LA disc jockey, he had a GTO at the time. So I thought that rhymed a lot better, and we used it. And I don't think it was enough to garner any credit for it, but it was just advice and it was used.
Was Joey the main lyricist, or did it go?
Dee
Dee was the main lyricist then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it was
Both great.
they both did. You know, it's a funny little anecdote. I remember before a Boston show at I think the club was the Metro or City, whatever it was called at that time. I was talking with you guys, and I think it was, geez, I don't know if it was Joey. Not you weren't involved. It was one of the other, two of the other three, and one of the guys said, "I've got a new song called I Don't Care," and the other said, "We have one called I Don't Care."
Right.
It was like, it really was a revelation. Like,
Yeah, no.
I'm not sure whose was whose.
Another song that sounds alike.
It's like,
Right.
we've already used up all the I don't.
I know, I don't want
I don't want.
I don't want to go down to the basement, I don't want to live this life, I don't want to. I know.
No, but I mean, and those songs hit such a chord with people at a time, obviously, when rock and roll, prog rock had come in, disco had come in, and the idea that you guys could keep it so simple and so much fun and funny and fast and hard and loud and all the rest of it. I mean, it was just
Yeah, music was getting to a point where I couldn't even listen to it anymore. I mean, you know, I'm thrilled there's so many guitar and drum virtuosos who can do 10-minute drum solos and do the fastest triplets in the world, but, you know, it's been done already, you know what I mean? So we were up against Stadium Rock and the disco scene, which was happening really big everywhere. And, you know, when I look back at the disco era, some of those songs are great.
Sure.
They had great choruses. They were fun songs, and there were real musicians playing on them. You know, I don't want to buy an album when I was a teenager and it had a 10-minute drum solo on it, and this 4 or 5 minute guitar solo of the fastest guitarist in the world. You know, how do you say it? A dime a dozen.